All right, this is Stephen Liebowitz with Access.com. I'm here with the famous David Ellefson of Megadeth, and we are going to be doing a short interview with today. Thanks for talking to me, David.
You're welcome.
Let's go right to the very beginning. How did you first become interested in becoming a musician?
I heard Kiss, and I saw Kiss, and I think seeing them was as important as hearing them. You know, I loved what I heard, and then I loved what I saw, and that's rock and roll. I loved it. I wanted in.
Okay. Now, after all these years, do you still have to practice the bass, or can you pick that thing up and just go anytime you want?
It depends. You know, I practice before we go on tour. I certainly practice when we're writing songs and preparing to record. But otherwise, I kind of try to leave instruments out around my house and just pick them up as I choose, because songs sometimes just fall out when you least expect it.
Right. Now, you have a concert coming up in New York on the 13th.
Yeah.
What can fans expect from the show?
It's a very cool, well, we've got a couple things coming up actually that week, but the main thing is Revolver Magazine Awards, and we're headlining it. A bunch of our friends, Anthrax, Lacuna Coil, are going to be there, Zach Wilde, Ace Frehley, and Dave Mustaine is co-hosting with Jose Mangan from Sirius Radio, so it's going to be a big Megadeth night. Should be fun.
Okay. And how did Megadeth first get formed?
You know, I moved out to Hollywood in June of 1983, and I met Dave Mustaine, who was actually living right up above me, and he had just formerly been in Metallica. He was only out of the group a couple months. He and I met. He was strategizing what his next move was. I came into town strategizing what my move was, and it was kind of one of those things where the two of us just met. We happened to get along real well. Dave was writing some incredible music, and I caught the vision of what it was, and he and I have been the consistence, you know, through the duration of Megadeth.
I read on the internet, which is not always the greatest source of information, you play in your church also.
I do, yeah.
So
yeah.
how that's obviously very different.
Yeah.
Than playing on stage. So how do you approach a subject like that?
You know, I grew up in the Lutheran. It's
very cool, by the way.
I grew up in the Lutheran church as a kid. You know, I grew up on a farm in Minnesota, so going to church on Sunday was just what we did. You know, nothing real fanatical, just part of our life. And we were in Nashville making a Megadeth record, the Risk album. And my kids were real young, so my wife and I started taking them to church. You know, you kind of do what your parents do, you know, when you start raising, when you become a parent, you know. And I called home to my wife, and she said, "Hey, the worship leader asked if you're around next week, if you finish your bass tracks on the album, if you're going to be home, maybe you can play at church. He needs a bass player." So I thought, yeah, why not? You know, it's off the radar. It'll be kind of fun, play different music. And so I did, and I really enjoyed it. It was cool. It was, you know, the modern worship music is kind of this U2-ish kind of music, you know, which I like anyway. And that's how it started. And then after that, you know, I just kept getting invited back, and I guess the good Lord probably thought, you know, if I get David to bring his bass, he'll probably show up and go to church more often, you know. So I just enjoyed it, and I got networked in with a bunch of, you know, really kind of top-line worship musicians, and funny, they all grew up on Megadeth, Metallica records, you know, and they're fans of ours. So it was kind of funny how that community really admires and respects what we do, and of course, bringing my family to church, I admire and respect what they do. So it's kind of a fun little community.
Well, the Rolling Stones just did a blues album. Is there any other genre of music you might want to explore one day?
Well, you know, it's funny. Frank Bello from Anthrax and I, we have a group called Altitudes and Attitude, and it's formed when he and I were doing some bass clinics together a few years back when we were doing the Big Four shows. And we started writing mostly just to have some backing tracks for our clinics. And what happened is Frank brought in a couple songs, I brought in a couple songs, and we had this really cool synergy. And this music is more, you know, again, it's kind of like Foo Fighters meets The Clash meets U2. Very kind of almost folksy singer-songwriter kind of stuff. And it's electric, but it doesn't have a thrash bombast to it, you know, and so we actually just finished an album this last week out in LA, and we're looking at a time to release it. Megadeth and Anthrax are on similar album cycles and tour cycles, so I think once we wind down next year in 2017, we're going to look at a time where we can put that out, and then he and I can go out and do some playing around it. and it's fun because we're not being solo artists. We're in our bands, but it's a fun thing that we can do that's very different from what our audiences hear us do inside of our main groups.
Okay. Can people go to your website to find out more about it as information comes available?
They
one
can.
day?
Yeah. We have altitudesandattitude.com is the website, and also on Facebook. And Frank and I post stuff from our own sites as well. So yeah, it's really cool. I think fans, we put out an EP about 3 years ago, just 3 songs, and just kind of fired off, and fans loved it. It was it's something really different, and I think because we're already in two of the greatest thrash bands out there. Why play more thrash? We do that really well inside of our band. So Frank and I get to have a fun moment away from that our fans can appreciate.
Okay. How's your weekend been here at Spooky Empire?
It's great. I've never been to Spooky Empire before. It's really cool. Kerry King from Slayer was down yonder yesterday, so he and I had fun hanging out at the just kind of goofing off at this thing, which is fun. For he and I to be away from sort of a concert setting, hanging out with fans and stuff. And metal and horror and spooky things, they mesh really well together here.
So what has been your favorite album or song of 2016?
Wow. You know what? I would say probably not Megadeth. I would say Ghost, Square Hammer.
Okay. And finally, what do you love most about performing live in concert?
You know what? Megadeth has always been very interactive. We probably have as much fun watching our fans as they do watching us, and the mosh pits and just the energy of it, and that hasn't changed. Everywhere we go around the world, it's amazing how our fans are exactly the same everywhere we go, and that is kind of like the stage is truly home. There's a comfort of the 4 of us up there playing. So there's certain songs I love: Holy Wars, Hangar 18, Symphony of Destruction, some of the classics that fans just wait for it. And as soon as we play it, the place just erupts. And that's a feeling you can't replace, you can't buy it. It's just, we're lucky to have it. It's a cool moment.
It's cool. Well, thanks so much for talking to us, David.
You're welcome.
And continued success. We all love you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.